100 years ago, one of the most important thinkers of the 20th century, Julius Evola, revealed the spiritual secrets of a lost paradise to the world. But this isn't another video about a land like Atlantis or Lemuria, because Evola revealed Hyperborea as not just a lost land, but as an ancient state of mind, where the heroic spirit is born, where gods are made, and where our true purpose in life is forged. Understanding Hyperborea is the key for unlocking our true potential to reconnect with our original nature, a state of being that we can still access, but have forgotten how to do so. We must return. I make videos to bring entertaining and interesting content. The goal of this channel is to go to 10,000 subscribers at least by the end of the year. So this means you and me, have a lot of work to do. And all I ask of you is to subscribe and watch to the end. As we left Hyperborea in the last video, we uncovered its mentions on medieval maps, old tales of explorers and in many ancient cultures. By different names but still the same concept, from the Irish in the North Sea to the Buddhists in the Himalaya. All spoke of a legendary utopian land of gods in the north as their origin. This makes Hyperborea not just a lost land, but a spiritual state of mind, representing a higher plane of existence. In his famous book, Revolt Against the Modern World, Evola proposes that Hyperborea represents an archetype of the primordial religious tradition. This means that it represents the universal idea of what ancient civilizations were like and what they believed in. Archetype means a prototype or a typical form of something. Evola coined this Hyperborean archetype the Olympian Ideal to make it more understandable and compare it to something with more recent historical references. The Olympian Ideal is among others referring to the 12 Olympians, the gods of ancient Greece that resided at Mount Olympus. The Olympian Ideal is one of nobility, strength, wisdom and rising above ordinary life, transcendence, a calm greatness with superiority, and also the essence of Hyperborean spirituality. It can also be understood as the merging of the warrior and wise sage dynamic, something I touched upon in my video about the alchemy in King Arthur, link in the description. This Olympian or Hyperborean ideal is not just a set of principles, a religion or a philosophy, but it is a way of life that must be adhered to with every single fiber of your being. It is the reality you find yourself in. You might have already guessed from the name and explanation so far that this Olympian ideal is also connected to the Olympic Games. And you're right, the original spirit of it is still left in the idea of the Olympic Games. The idea of overcoming challenges, working on yourself, achieving and competing with others to measure yourself against a difficult challenge. However, in ancient times, the Olympic Games were not just a mere sports festival, and if you would compare them to today, you would think they are completely unrelated. In ancient Greece, the Olympic Games had more the character of a ritual, of a magical operation. There's accounts that these games were so important that even warring states took a break from fighting to participate in those games, with some Greek city-states not even acknowledging they were at war with another state until the games were concluded. It even was common for participants in those games to compete against each other, only to later face each other again on the battlefield after the games concluded. Can you imagine this? Those games were meant to honor achievement and to impress the gods. They were like a ritual to the gods, and it was the worst thing any state could do to not follow through with them or even pause them. However, all of it is in stark contrast with today. In recent times, the Olympic Games devolved into signaling whatever primitive materialistic or selfish desire is now trending, impressing only by how far they strayed from their original meaning. The Olympian ideal represents a spiritual and moral model, one that is oriented around and connected to the 12 Olympian gods. The 12 Olympians being Apollo, Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Artemis, Ares, Athena, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Hestia and Hermes. What these gods represented comes closest to the spirituality of Hyperborea. They are personifying a form of a higher, divine order. But in the Olympian ideal, it isn't about worshipping these gods with prayers, offerings and dances. It is about striving to achieve their qualities, of using them as your framework, blueprint and poster to model yourself after. And it does not discriminate between men or women either. Think of the Olympian Ideal like discovering pieces of a special armor set in a game, and once you find and equip all the pieces, you gain a bonus to your stats, like receiving the blessing of Hermes when you wear all armor parts associated with Hermes. Plotinus, a philosopher to the likes of Aristotle and Plato, put it greatly.
It is for the gods to come to me, not for me to go to them.
You're not worshipping them with prayers, you worship them by becoming them. The goal is to be a god, not just a good man or woman. This is in a nutshell the concept of self-deification, also often mentioned in Evola's works and likewise often misunderstood. It is not about fantasizing being a god and excusing every bad behavior with it. Quite the opposite. It is not that the label God must apply to you, it is that you must apply to the label God. You must work on yourself to reach this label. It is the pursuit of greatness, self-mastery and living by a higher, almost heroic standard. Instead of hoping for a God to save you, you become the God to save yourself. This understanding seems to be something that is completely forgotten in the modern Western world, no doubt thanks to the Abrahamic faiths, Christianity, Judaism and Islam. Those are emphasizing reliance on a divine will, with phrases such as "the Lord works in mysterious ways" and similar are just excuses and a form of defeatism and indifference, serving as reasons for inaction in the face of disaster or injustice, a convenient way of taking accountability away from individuals. Whereas in this Olympian or Hyperborean ideal, you impress the gods with your actions and qualities during difficult times, so they are compelled to come and help you. The gods always help those who can help themselves. The Olympian Ideal is about striving to elevate oneself above ordinary existence, to embody virtues that reflect a more noble and divine way of being, and to become more what you currently are. It is not about having virtues, it is about being them. Another example of what this can look like is found in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, but this is a topic for another video. Hyperborea was also a solar civilization, therefore closely linked to the sun and its qualities. This does not mean just sun worship. A solar civilization is one of attainment, of reaching spiritual heights rather than just material ones. It is about embodying the divine qualities associated with the sun, such as light, clarity, life-giving energy, and making them your own. The sun does not bother himself with making it rain by shining, yet its shine eventually causes rain. It is about being a cause, not an effect. Likewise, you must approach everything else in your life. Evola stated,
"The Hyperboreans were the bearers of a higher wisdom, a solar tradition that sought to awaken the divine potential within man."
This highlights the transformative power of the Hyperborean Ideal and its continuous influence. Evola and other thinkers believe that Hyperborea as a solar civilization laid the foundation for later religions like Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, Sumerian and Norse beliefs, which share many similar themes and ideas in their faiths and practices. Hyperborea's solar civilization, with its immense wisdom and almost magical qualities, aligns with the concept of the Golden Age, or Satya Yuga in Hinduism. An era of spiritual peaks, abundance and greatness. A real paradise on earth and the best era to live in. But what does this concept of ages even mean? Unlike our modern view of time as linear and always progressing, the concept of ages sees time as cyclical. This means that civilizations go through repeated cycles of prosperity, stagnation, decline and ruin. You've probably seen this popular image circulating around online. This is actually a great way to understand what cyclical time means, though it focuses mainly on one aspect, man. The idea of civilizations rising, stagnating, declining and falling is nothing new. It is actually a rediscovered truth, because ancient cultures all view time as cyclical. For example, the Mayan long count calendar, which did not calculate the end of the world, but the end of one such cycle. They saw time like the seasons repeating itself in cycles, therefore the name. Also, each era or age had its own themes and realities shaping their lives. Unlike our modern ego belief in constant progress, these ancient cultures saw time as a repeating cycle of birth, growth, decay, and rebirth. This is just how reality was and still is. But the idea of a golden age hints at the existence of other ages, each with qualities that are less ideal for the people living through them. Here's a brief overview of these ages drawn from the Hindu tradition, although it is almost completely similar to the Egyptian or Greek classifications. The Golden Age. In this age, humans were in close connection with the gods. It was the best time to live in, a time of harmony, happiness, plenty and spiritual enlightenment. You've likely heard people refer to something as a golden age before, like the golden age of cinema or the golden age of the internet. This usage of the term comes exactly from the concept of ages, where the golden age marks the peak of excellence and greatness, and the times that follow become worse step by step. The Silver Age. Though still a high age, the focus begins to shift towards materialism. Rituals become more frequent to make up for some of the loss of true connection to the gods. The Bronze Age. Where materialism starts to overshadow spirituality, rituals replace genuine spiritual practices and are upheld as the only correct path. During this time, morals start to deteriorate. The Iron Age. Kali Yuga. This age is marked by profound moral and spiritual decline. Greed, selfishness, hatred and frequent natural disasters define this era. And as you might have already guessed it, the Kali Yuga is the age we are currently living in. I originally wanted to include the timeline of Hyperborea and how it birthed Atlantis right at this point in the video. But during my research and writing the script, I uncovered way more things than I thought I would, and it ended up being so interesting it is worth its own dedicated video. So while I teased it in the last video, I hope you'll forgive me for holding it off for now. It's coming soon, I promise. I only started making YouTube videos recently, so I have a lot to learn on how to go about things like these. Eventually, I plan to turn this series into a longer video, after I learned more about making videos, adding new things to it rather than just stitching the series together. Let me know if that's something you would be interested in. If you want to support me, you can do so over at buymeacoffee.com/numinous diamond. Even the free Euro tier helps immensely.